Hello, everybody, and thank you for being here.
1 second.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Amina and I are members of EPS team in Fairleigh Dickinson University, the Vancouver campus, and then we've been teaching together for a couple of years. The goal in our team, all members, is trying to improve different methods and approaches for helping students with English language as a model of development of professions. So when the pandemic started, the situation was totally different, as all speakers have discussed it. For our team and for our courses we're teaching, it was not an exception. Learning the new technologies and then designing some materials which were a good fit for online courses, and also how to improve the interaction between instructors and students. When I was a PhD student around 2009, my focus was on computer-assisted language learning, and I never thought that this would happen. So those days, my focus was trying to use online systems in order to improve language learning. But in 2020, it was a big surprise. We had to use them. Amina, next slide, please. So EPS courses at FDU normally have got courses for undergrad and grad student. For this study, Amina and I decided to focus on EPS 5099, which is a course specifically for graduate students who are admitted into the first semester of their education. It has 6 hours of lecture referred to as academic writing skills with a orientation of research development skill, plus workshops, which are 3 hours per week. Most of the students who are in these classes are international students from different countries. So their second culture acquisition needs support. For this research and study, we decided to focus on the special competence of language learning, and that's conceptual competence, or in other words, conceptual fluency development. We thought how to support students, and then we selected authenticity in order to bring a good connection between second culture learning and then English language programs that we have. The research question was based on sociocultural theory, based on what Vygotsky has in his research and in his books. He believes that there's a connection between the brain and the surrounding society, and that is a very important element in order to support any individual to develop their skills. For this purpose, we are using Vygotsky sociocultural theory in terms of how this interaction between surrounding society and the brain of a second language learner, and then how this can be assisted in order to activate higher mental function. Here we needed something, and that is a mediation. And we picked up internet as a source of mediation for connecting students with their surrounding society. So there are some sections on literature review and methodology, and then my partner Amina is going to continue, and then I'll be back again with some analysis.
Thank you, Mehran. Good afternoon. So technically, we were focused on computer-assisted language learning, which we refer to as CORE. It's a professional learning and meditation tool to support theoretical foundations of socio-cultural theory. In this program, the literature that we found was that students take control of their own learning experiences in this environment, according to Wallner. 2021. And we also found that failing to include digital resources creates a disconnect for students' learning experience, as was outlined by Morgan 2019. In this program of computer-assisted language learning, instructors can present images, videos, PowerPoint presentations, written text with and without sound. And this also allows for individualized instruction and feedback, encourage active learning, promote learning, additional learning, as was discussed by a few authors, Sadik and Sadik 2012, and Aluwale et al. 2020. Video camera is optional in this computer-assisted learning, but encouraged. Students are concerned about their background environment, their personal experience, and weak internet, as we found Costella and survey indicated 2021. An additional aspect was the unstable internet connection was really a challenge. And Morgan 2019 found that connecting with students around the world for language learning through Zoom was really an educational experience for them. For the methodology, a qualitative narrative design was selected. The methodology and techniques were classified into two branches, as Mehran explained earlier. EPS 5099 is an academic writing skills program. EPS 5199 is the workshop in academic communication. Here, the instructor provides students with new exposure and interaction with authentic online material. Different activities are used to help students to improve their language proficiency. Students are given reading assignments online. They summarize material online. TED Talks are used as professional presentations, which students summarize online. And students research academic articles using the FTU online library and other database, and they critically evaluate research articles online. In the 5099 academic writing skills program, it's the computer-assisted language learning call, which is used with the Zoom platform, which is the predominant method. And in the class is predominantly international students. The classes are capped at 15 per class and 6 hours of instruction per week, which is 3 hours times 2, with a space between each day. Video cameras are encouraged, but not required. Different levels of learning materials and methods are used in the 5099 program. Here, students work at their own pace and independently. PowerPoint presentations are used to target language features. We use breakout rooms, which pairs more groups for individualized attention. The chat box provides digital environment for thoughts and questions. And we also incorporated 20-minute break, and we found that Costella and survey actually 2021 showed that when we do the 20-minute break, a time to relax and fight off the Zoom fatigue. So to continue with the 5099, we found that students, we get students to prepare assignments, write paragraphs and essays based on readings and research online. In the pre-writing stage, students use a computer to generate ideas and prepare an online or an outline or a writing plan, which is shared on the screen for feedback and for peer evaluation, for observation. A work processing program is used to prepare the assignments from the first draft to the final draft and edit without having to retype the document or save it for later use. Students then can edit, revise, and revise their writing based on a checklist before submitting on Blackboard. The instructor uses a review tracking system to provide feedback both orally and written to the students. Students Students learn to critically evaluate research articles online. We use the APA format, 7th edition, for referencing and citations. And paraphrasing and summarizing techniques are used. Visual presentations, like the PowerPoint presentation, are used to assist with revising and editing. The Zoom screen is shared, the Zoom Shades screen feature, rather, provides oral participation and peer feedback, which facilitates discussions among students and instructor. They also demonstrate oral comprehension by summarizing and discussing information from the lecture and participate cooperatively and constructively with peers and communicate with the instructor. TED Talk presentations are used to promote learning with comprehension, pronunciation, and language training. Students can recognize their weaknesses here, revise, and edit their writing. And I'm going to hand over to Mehran again to talk about the EPS 5199.
Oh, thank you, Amina. So with Amina, step by step describe, we see that what we have been doing was trying to boost this interaction between the student brain and the authentic materials. And then this is what we want to gain. Why? Because we are bombarding them with the exposure in order to see what's happening next. When the students are in 5099, as Amina described, so there is 1 week lab class, and then it's time to see what they're going to produce. It's time to check their discourse, whether orally or in written. Amina and I decided to focus on their written discourse because it was much easier to check weekly whether there's any progress in conceptual learning or not. Students were receiving instruction how to do their assignment, and then the output was the written discourse they produced for us. Weekly, we checked the conceptual fluency development, and how we did that, it was based on counting the metaphorical density they have in their discourse. This is one of the methods that many scholars, including Donesi and Lakoff and others, have suggested and used, and it's a proven way for counting the development of conceptual fluency, whether in oral discourse or written. So the data was collected over time. Can you switch to the next slide, please, Amina? Thank you. So when we had our data, it was time to see whether what we have claimed in our hypothesis worked or not. We checked the metaphorical density day by day, week by week, in each session. And then the observation showed that, yes, there is a higher density of metaphors, while there's a limitation in our research. We did not follow a statistical approach in order to see whether there's a significant difference for week 1 and week 2 and week 3, or even week 1 and the last week. But our narrative count of the growth of metaphorical density proved that we see development. However, this is maybe a suggestion for further investigation to run the statistical study using SPSS, probably, to prove whether there is a significant difference between what we have found. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the conclusion of this study proves that there is a possibility that if students are exposed to authentic material, we can have a positive feedback on the development of conceptual fluency. But maybe there's a question here. What's the value for conceptual fluency? Why should we pay so much attention to that? Over time, those who have been dealing with second language learning know that different competencies, such as linguistic competence, communicative competence, they have been receiving a lot of attention through textbook and classrooms. But something which has been maybe neglected, and then it's a decade that is receiving a lot of attention, that is the development of concept among language learners, especially for countries like Canada. There's a just huge number of immigrants immigrating. Many students are going to follow their studies, and then they can just communicate. But many of them are complaining about, hey, my English is not the English of my native speaker friend. How can I improve it? And then the key is that there is something which is neglected in language learning, and that is metaphorical competence or conceptual fluency development. And then there should be more researches on how to develop that. We would like just to continue this research in order to find more, but so far has been done, and then it was time to do this presentation for PTGA conference. Thank you very much for listening to us. It was a pleasure to share our thoughts with you.